The Stark Sentinel has finally went online. Stark is on his last limb as Rhodey, aka the War Machine, just got arrested. However, an unexpected turn of events happened as the Stark Sentinel tries to arrest Emma Frost. Will Iron Man be enough to save her? In the office of the superhuman attorney She-Hulk, Tony is sitting in front of Jennifer Walters' desk. Tony claims that they haven't killed anyone, referring to himself and Rhodey. He added that he needed Rhodey to be out of prison. Tony felt powerless as he sat in the office, thinking about his Iron Man technology being put to the wrong use, while his best friend was in jail for him. Walters knows that Tony and Rhodey are innocent, but as per the law, she mentioned that they must wait for it to move one thing at a time. Then she pointed out the issue with Fei Long, as he now owns Stark Unlimited, including the patents and technology in the Iron Man suits. Walters added that Tony must comply with the cease and desist order given to him, which Tony resentfully complies with. But he then asked her advice as a Hulk, to which she told him she wanted to smash for him as she crushed her pen. Walters pointed out that Tony is at fault for this, as he set up the precedent for everything that happened during the Armor Wars, which his enemy used to their advantage, by turning his victories against him. She then added that one way of getting out of the current mess by drastically changing the designs of his suit, or if he failed to do so, Tony could move his base of operation outside the country or into international waters. Still, Walter said she isn't advising him to do so, suggesting that he operates outside of Krakoa instead. Walters told Tony she could talk to someone for him, but he cut her off by stating he knew what he needed to do. He wasn't just honest with himself and did not want to face the truth that Fei Long won, that he now owns Iron Man. In the streets of New York, the public was surprised and baffled to see many Stark Sentinels, grouped into 3 units per platoon, flying above the city. Some are flying higher than buildings while others are flying low so that people can see them move. Tony then monologues in his mind that his most significant achievement has been Frankenstein into giant killer robots, and that made him feel sick. What's worse for him is seeing the frightened and terrified faces of the public that saw those automated suits he called Fei Long's abominations. He then admitted to himself that he'd imagined losing to those Stark Sentinels, which for him are an engineering nightmare, and haven't yet found answers for them. In a warehouse-like building, Tony is preparing to store his last Iron Man suit, which was the Mark 70 suit, as he mentioned that he has already sold something else at a loss to cover Rhodey's rising legal bills. He was prepared to go underground. He reminisces when Captain Marvel personally asked him to serve as an Avenger, and Tony felt he let that particular friend down. He then added that he needs to be stealthier than he'd like to, as he noted that he would need to hand over the Mark 70 suit to Fei Long that he currently has. He was about to store away the Mark 70's helmet when an emergency broadcast was sent to the Avengers frequency linked to his armor, as it showed a holographic image of Captain Krakoa after an attack he made in the Senate building in Washington, D.C. This made Tony decide to use the Mark 70 suit one last time and stop Krakoa. Tony whizzes by the city building as he flies fast toward Washington, D.C. He ordered his AI assistant named Boss to create a flight plan to his location while saving energy as much as possible, to which the AI responded immediately. Tony picks up transmission from Carol Denver stating that the Avengers will respond to the DC incident. She added that they are all leaving from the Hellfire Gala. Suddenly, a different message has been transmitted to the emergency frequency of the Avengers regarding a distress call made in Brooklyn Bridge area. Tony orders Boss to give him flight controls, which he does, and flies in the direction of that area and a minute from his current location. He made it in 15 seconds and Tony thought he would miss the Mark 70 suit. He then casually greeted Rogue and Captain America, who were there at the location of the distress call, asking if anyone had been hurt. Cap then jokingly tells Tony that only his motorcycle and Pride has been hurt. Meanwhile, Rogue points out a trio of Stark Sentinels passing by them, asking if it was his idea, to which Tony answers no, while asking back if it was Cyclops under the Krakoa disguise that attacked the Senate building. Rogue unsurprisingly answered no, while using her power to levitate Cap so they could all go to Washington immediately. As the trio arrives in the US Capitol, the attack is already over and the finger pointing as to who shall be blamed begins. Many have been wounded in the attack and carted off by the authorities. Tony thinks of the attack as a false flag attack, and he has accomplished 2 things: whipping up bad sentiments and making all the white hats look the same. Tony returns to New York only to find a lone Stark Sentinel looking over a regular office building. He contemplates that he could have handled the following situation more quickly if he had the Mark NIL suit, which was made for stealth. As he witnesses the Stark Sentinel punches a massive hole in the office building while announcing a high-value mutant detected speech, to which horrified Tony. Inside the damaged building, the Stark Sentinel announced Emma Frost's alter ego of the White Queen and stated that she was under arrest as per an Interpol warrant. The colossal drone robot then aimed its hand repulsors at Emma and the two individuals in the room, saying, "Comply or face the consequences." Tony swoops in, goes under the drone's feet, and blocks its propulsion exhaust with a pink goo-like substance that covers all the exhaust, disabling its flight capabilities and making the drone fall to the ground. Tony then taunts the drone by saying the bigger an object is, the more complex the object falls. The drone violently crashes to the ground, shattering into pieces with a loud boom. Tony then monologues about finding a way to disable traditional jet propulsion system after the armor wars, and he notes to himself that he cannot use the same trick again as he has limited ammo for it. Tony enters through the hole made by the Stark Sentinel and sarcastically greets Emma Frost, asking if he is bothering them. He then stated that Captain Krakoa attacked Washington, while berating her for skipping her own party to do business with some he didn't expect to see. Wilson Fisk of Westeros, also known as Kingpin. Emma berates a surprised Tony by calling him an imbecile that is loathsome and self-righteous. She then blamed him for attacking the gala with the Stark Sentinels, causing the death of many attendants. Emma ended her speech by yelling at Tony for having the gall speak at her like that, while Fisk told Emma that he was done signing the document on the table and assuring her that she won't regret it. A surprised and confused Tony can't believe what he heard from Emma, as he had no idea that Captain America and Krakoa were attacked first. He then told Emma that he was in Washington DC, answering Captain America's distress call after the attack on his life. Emma then comments that she will miss Cap if he is taken out, and then changes the topic, asking Tony what he will do with those monstrosities, referring to the Stark Sentinels. Tony angrily retorts to Emma, saying that she was also at fault for not listening to him last time he could attend the previous Hellfire Gala, and now everything has turned into against their favor. He added that the Stark Sentinels with his Ironman technology weren't his doing, but his words were cut off by something. A sudden back fist punch hurls Tony away from Emma and Fisk. Luckily enough, his Mark 70 suit has fast reaction time to attacks like this, closing immediately any open ports in his armor as a defense mechanism. He mentioned that he needs to go out of the suit when he lands for a rest stop while using the suit. Tony violently crashes on top of a taco truck, wherein he awkwardly joked that he realized that he hadn't eaten anything yet that night, but not before the attacking Stark Sentinel stomps the truck with its feet, making it explode. Meanwhile, Fix and his aide escape, but not before advising Emma to use Stark's arrival and destruction to get away herself. Emma tells them to go, but faces instead two new Stark Sentinels that arrive with the one that attacked Tony. She then talked to the drone saying Fei Long's name, telling him as she knows he is listening and thinks he is being clever now. She congratulated him for getting Stark Unlimited and its technologies in a sarcastic tone. Meanwhile, in a monitor showing the Stark Sentinels live broadcast of Emma Frost and her declaration of threat against her enemy by stating that her enemy has beaten more than he can chew, Fei Long watches comfortably and in safety, knowing that he can't be touched by the heroes for now. Fei Long taunts Emma by telling her that he doesn't feel threatened. He then stated monologuing his true intentions to himself, saying that he doesn't need to pretend to be a nice guy anymore. He added that Emma had laced the medicine she had given the humans and attacked the ambassadors who confronted her. That incident resulted in her being wanted by Interpol and having an arrest warrant. Fei Long then ends his monologue by saying that mutants are cancer to the planet Earth and declares himself as the surgeon. Hearing his completed monologue, Emma accepts that Fei Long wants to do things the hard way, confidently declaring that in her diamond form. The Stark Sentinels cannot harm her as her diamond form slowly manifests around her body. Then Emma makes a last offer to Fei Long, telling him to retreat and make restitution and accept his responsibility for his heinous actions, or else he will die under Emma's heel. Being the devious villain that he is, Fei Long just feints off Emma's warning and orders the Stark Sentinel to kill both Emma and Tony. As per Fei Long's command, Emma was violently thrown out from the building she was in moments ago. She made a rough landing down the streets below, but was thankfully okay due to her diamond-covered body. Tony then tries to joke on Emma, asking how her flight was, and Emma resorts to him saying to focus. Tony replies that he is focusing and urges Emma to get away while covering for her. He added that the drones were after his suit, but Emma reminded Tony that she is impervious to damage while in her diamond form. She then reverses Tony's offer and asks him if she should cover for him instead. But Tony, being himself, declines her offer by reminding her that she is wanted with an Interpol warrant on her head. He then taunts her that she will be his guest if she wants to stay and joke it out with the Stark Sentinels they're facing. He then saves Emma from being stepped on by one of the drones. Tony then drops off Emma off at the subway entrance elsewhere, saying he has a winning strategy against the drones and doesn't want her to slow him down. Emma fires back at him, saying that the 3 against 1 is hardly sporting, and confirm again if he can manage alone. Tony then nonchalantly tells her that if he can't, at least his attempt will be symbolic of something he won't need to rehash in therapy, and bids her goodbye. As Emma descends the subway stairs, she contacts Tony using her power that connects through Tony's communicator channel frequency and tells him that all the heroes are at war. She will find the remaining X-Men members. Tony applauds her decision, saying that she should have all of them sent on his way so they won't think he's stealing their bit with the Sentinels, before noticing that the trio of Sentinels they have fought earlier are gone. But that was a ruse from the flying hulking giants, as out of nowhere, two giant mechanical fists flew to both sides of Tony mid-air, almost squishing him to death. Thankfully, Tony could make a last-minute save as he stopped the attack by the Stark Sentinel drones, thanking the fact that the drones have limited stealth capabilities, but he couldn't hold on much longer. Sensing that Tony is in trouble, Emma stopped herself from boarding the subway train, ready to go back up to help Tony, but contacts him first to give him a sign that he is still alive. With his suit damaged, Tony was severely injured and couldn't barely answer Emma's telepathic call. He weakly asked for her help, making Emma rush back to the streets. Unable to move, a Stark Sentinel aims at the downed Tony lying on the ground. Emma uses her power to enter his mind remotely, temporarily. Inside Tony's mind, Emma walks down an alleyway recreated in Tony's mind. She calls out his name, asking where he is and telling him he must move immediately. Tony then answers, saying he is there and she should get away from him as he thinks he will die. Emma refuses to do so, saying enough people have died that night, and ventures deeper into his mind. Representing another dark alleyway between city buildings, she repeated her words again in a louder tone, enough for Tony to hear her. As she ventures deeper into his mind, the alleyway representation becomes dirtier and messier. The path is filled with empty alcoholic bottles and graffiti on the way saying "No way out," the words hope and safe crossed out. She then added that whatever trauma his mind has retreated to is real, but sternly reminded him that it isn't happening now. She then asked him again for his location. At the end of the alleyway, Emma finds a disgruntled Tony sitting on the edge of a wall, surrounded by empty alcoholic bottles, a representation of his past trauma with alcohol addiction and his struggles. He then tells Emma that he is dying, wherein Emma answers that it would be tremendously inconvenient as many people have already died and suffered that night. Emma approaches Tony and tells him he is in terrible danger, grabs his hand and tells him to move over as she will be driving now. Finally, being able to control Tony's mind remotely, Emma boasts that she can control his body and the Ironman suit like a car, which Tony just grunts back, who still hasn't woken up. Emma then fires a missile in the upper bicep portion of the suit. However, she misses her shot and hits a faraway building instead. The aiming Stark Sentinel retaliates by firing its weapon, which Emma could evade using the suit's foot boosters. She complained that the suit was a horrid contraption, commenting how someone could consign themselves to living inside an Iron Maiden. Now that Tony is out of sight, the two Stark Sentinels locate a standing defenseless Emma and focus their attention on her. Emma shows telepathically to Tony that she's out of time and he must wake up already. Back in Tony's mind, he starts to unravel the pile of snow in front of him and eventually picks up the helmet of the Mark I suit. Thanks to that, he wakes up and snaps back to reality, wherein he thanks Emma for waking him and coming back for him. Emma telepathically answers that whatever happens next, he must tell the world the truth about the night's events. Unfortunately, one of the Stark Sentinels apprehended Emma and placed an inhibitor collar on her neck, disabling her powers. Seeing this, Tony ejects himself from the damaged Mark 70 suit and willingly surrenders himself. Knowing that Fei Long was watching them through the cameras of the Stark Sentinels, Tony begrudgingly called Fei Long about the Mark 70 suit. He reminded him that he wanted the suit and could take it in exchange for not killing Emma. He added that since Emma is guilty of a crime, she is due for a fair trial by law. This made Fei Long think momentarily before ordering the drones to pause their purity protocols, saving Emma from death. Being released by the drone, Emma sarcastically tells Tony that she shouldn't be meeting like this, referring to their current situation. Tony asks her back about her being invulnerable. Emma then casually reminds Tony that she cannot use her mental abilities in diamond form, and Tony criticizes her for saving him instead of running away. Emma bickers back at him, saying that it was due to self-preservation and adding that she would have claimed that she had killed him that night, which Tony scoffs up, saying that no one will believe her. Emma shoos him up, saying that he was concussed. Thinking he has won, Fei Long confidently orders the Stark Sentinels to take Emma to the gulag-like location on Randall's Island. He boasted that she was harmless with the inhibitor collar on her neck, wanting to drill in her head the fact. He then added that if Tony resisted, he would be arrested. He then gives out an order to prepare for an enhanced interrogation. Meanwhile, Tony started babbling nonsense to Emma, saying that his capitalist heart hates more than anything in debt, and offered her to balance out their books. Confused by his words, Emma scoffs at Tony, asking him if those are some kind of tech bro euphemisms and reminding him that she cannot read his mind now. She is about to tell him something about having a traumatic brain injury still. Tony cuts her off by giving out the order keyword of rescue to the Mark 70 suit, which immediately encases a surprise Emma inside itself and automatically flies away, avoiding the grasp from the Stark Sentinels, which was caught off guard by Tony's actions. Emma shouts Tony's name as she flies away from the scene inside the Mark 70 suit. A surprised Fei Long angrily orders the Stark Sentinels to stop Emma from escaping the States and he needs her dead or alive. But the Stark Sentinels couldn't capture Emma, who successfully escaped. Tony then taunts Fei Long through his drones, reminding the latter that he wants the former to be dead, encouraging him to do it. He added another taunt, saying he'll die by dawn for killing an Avenger on the street. So that's the end of the episode. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out when episode 9 is released. While waiting, you can check out this new Avenger series. This is Carl and see you in the next one.